Hello, Phoenix, and my faithful listeners, and everybody else that might be tuned in to this station. It is 2 o'clock Sunday, and it's time for Need to Read, the show that promotes reading for fun, profit, and understanding, and the development of habitual critical thinking. On this show, we deal with subjects of reading and comprehension, and we have some sayings that we'd like to put out there. We want to know why the civilized have not conquered the earth and set the people free from the jackboot of tyranny. Why is it that after all these years, most of the people of the earth are under oppressive government? And so that's one of the questions one of the sayings or the questions I'd like to put on the show. I believe that for the first time, we're being filmed, and I'm required to address y'all as the audience. And so I'm going to try to maintain eye contact at most times. We have, of course, a tremendous variety of subjects that need to be addressed in a limited short amount of time. We have a guest coming on in the second half of the show about they're marketing people and medical marketing, and when they come on, I'll be asking them some questions about their company and their efforts. I also have another saying on this show that I'd like to come out with once in a while, and that is that we need some magnetic nets to capture the criminals or the crooks, so that these violent people who resist arrest are not subject to being somehow hurt and even killed by the police who are trying to subdue them. And so if we had these nets that they just shot out from a little canister or something, and the net flopped around the criminal, and then closed up with these magnetic things and closed up around him, and then it had a little voice that would come on and repeat. It says, "Please do not resist. You are under arrest. If you resist, you may harm yourself." And then the net closes on him and stuff. And so that would certainly save a lot of trouble. I think that would be a great idea if we could get something like that going. And I also believe that the internet should be free. I don't really believe that we should control the content on it, and people need to regulate themselves, because you can't stifle freedom of speech. I mean, some of it, I guess, you can't go and cause a riot, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater and that kind of stuff. Nevertheless, people need to exert their own discretion on what to watch and to what not to watch. And that is the same thing with any kind of pursuit of education or knowledge that you have, that you're pursuing. You need to be be discriminate, because words can be used to deceive. Words are always used to propagate a certain point of view. It is absolutely everybody that has an argument, and I don't mean an argument where you're bitterly fighting, but an argument meaning a presentation of facts to back up what you believe is the truth. So everybody's argument is based on what they believe, and they're going to use the words that they think best enhance that. But oftentimes words are used to deceive. And so, I'm just encouraging everyone to research what things mean and what is meant by the words that somebody's putting out to you. I have a list of books that I recommend. Let me see, what did I do with it? Okay, it's right here. Well, we have a mayor's race coming up. Before I mention my books, we have a mayor's race coming up in Phoenix because, I think it was going to be his term ran out anyway this cycle. But Mayor Stanton resigned early because he wants to run for federal office, I believe. And I didn't really care for Stanton's administration. And so I'm hoping we get a better mayor. One of the mayor candidates running for mayor is a man named Moses Sanchez, and we're going to try to contact him and maybe get him on the show, and maybe get any other candidate on the show. We can discuss some of the issues of Phoenix. I want to remind you all that this show is sponsored in part, of course, by the mobile car wash, and you'll hear the commercials during the show and during the breaks, and also sponsored in part by Sarah, and her company is called Business Development Professionals, and her website is bdpgroups.com, and she does business development. So, and Sarah is is going to be available at, you can contact her through that website. That's bdpgroups.com. And, I was talking to Sarah today just before the show came on, and she was talking about, more women being around and stuff, and being in the workplace, in business, participating in other things than just the family care. And I think that, that was a great discussion that we could go on with, because, most women really are not interested in pursuing much more than being a mother and being a caretaker to the family. And I think that's extremely good. Thank God for all the mothers who dedicate themselves to nothing more than that and create an incredible environment for children growing up. But children do grow up. And then, maybe, either the women feel so strongly about it that they become surrogate mothers to their grandchildren and other cousins and nieces and nephews and stuff. But other women are very orientated toward accomplishing things in the outer world, so to speak. And so we welcome them in there. I don't believe there'll ever be 50% of the Congress will be women. I don't believe that's probably ever going to happen, because once again, most women are not orientated that way. But their influence, as small as it may be, as few as they may be in the Congress, I think are extremely important. I think women's influences and women's thoughts are very important. So I want to assure you all of that I definitely feel that way about it. And I welcome all women into the public arena. Besides, let me see here it is. Sorry, guys. Okay, the Phoenix mayor's race. And of course, Trump is in the news as usual. He's, going to meet with, Un Guy. He's, dissing our allies, I guess. They're fighting about trade and whatnot, trying to point out Canada's, heavy tariff on dairy products. And so that's in the news. And I was wondering if anybody has anything to say about that. There's a lot of racism, talk in the nation. There's a lot of people crying and whining about racism. And there's a lot of people, non-white people, excuse me, who are coming forward and saying that, in fact, though there may be residual racism, that in fact the United States is such a place of opportunity that anybody who wallows in what could be considered racist detriment, like if you're like I'm Mexican, and so I have encountered some racism here and there, and yet I just ignore it because it's nothing that can hinder me. First of all, most people aren't that way, so it's not going to influence most people at all. And then again, the law is on your side. If you are being discriminated against and treated improperly in the public arena because of your race by some bigot, then that guy's going to be in trouble. And so to worry about whether or not there's some racism or somebody might have said something that you thought was racist, or they told a joke that wasn't exactly sensitive, you really got to let that just go over your head, and because there's too much opportunity sitting around waiting for you to grab a hold of. And we really need more voices from the people who are being recruited by these people who want to gin up conflict between the races and to try to generate votes and stuff. You really need to just don't even listen to them. Just try to influence whoever you can. The opportunities are in front of us, and all you got to do is grab a hold of them. And one of the most important things of grabbing a hold of the opportunity that's here in this country is to be able to read. And those that make the decisions in this country are those that read other people's writings and argue in the public arena. Those that vote in this country are the ones that make the decisions for all the rest of the ones that don't vote. So it's extremely important that you get out and vote, and you inform yourself before you vote. And I've said this before, if you're not going to inform yourself, then it's better if you don't vote. Now, I'm not saying that a person doesn't have the right to go out and vote for whoever it is they feel they want them to represent them. That's fine. Nevertheless, you have a duty to inform yourself on the issues. So we're going to be taking a break here, And then I'm going to come back with talking about what's coming up on the shows in the coming weeks. Like there's a comedian going to be coming on, I think, next week. And we're going to have some other people coming on. And I also have some books and stuff I want to recommend in the next segment. So we'll be right back.
Marketing your company in the 21st century takes social media maintenance, branding, consistency across all media, custom web designs with timely updates, custom video production on a consistent basis. How many employees would this require? Too many. So, what's the solution? This marketing team. Contact us now to find out how you can meet your marketing needs while keeping your overhead low.
Welcome back. I certainly appreciate the music of Gordon Lightfoot, and I've been using that for my theme, show theme since I started, and I think it was quite appropriate. The man that selected those songs. One of the I was saying that when we took the break, I was going to come back and talk about some recommended readings, and so at this time. Well, I try to keep my brain in order, and regular listeners of the show know that I don't really seem to have proper organization, and that's why I'm so grateful for Sarah coming in. She represents BDP Groups, and it's a marketing firm, and that's .com. BDP excuse me, BDP Groups.com. And she's also been taking over, lining up my guests and trying to organize the show a little better and making me look at the camera. And told me not to raise the papers too high, but, there's my papers, shuffling them up there. I'm very grateful for that, and I'm sure that the show's going to be a lot better organized here in the future. And like I said, here coming up in the second half, we're going to have some guests on that have a marketing company that's going to help with financing of medical expenses and stuff too. So we'll see what that is about in the second half of the show. Right now I want to recommend these books, and I'll tell you the reason I recommended them. And these will also be up on the YouTube or the live streaming that's going to come on. Not live streaming, but I'm not really sure. But they're doing the recording so that y'all can listen and watch the show anytime. You don't have to just tune in at this time. So. Now, last week up on that, there was 4 authors and stories, and here's 5 more. And so the first one is called The Whale Tooth, and it's by Jack London. And the reason I recommend this story, besides it's an interesting story, is because it's basically by Jack London, and almost never have I read anything by him that was not absolutely excellent and exciting and enthralling and put you into that other world of imagination where your own mind takes the words you've read and then kind of my goodness, excuse me, visualizes them for themselves. If he talks about how they're racing across the ice and the ice is breaking up and they're falling into the ice. And he describes it a certain way, but you visualize it in your mind as an actual image. So it's incredible the power of the written word and the mind to take the written word and turn it into actual mental visions, daydreams, if you would. And so that's The Whale Tooth by Jack London. And then I recommend The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. And I recommend The Lottery because it is like the perfect simple story. Not a lot of weird big words that you have to figure out. Not a lot of slang. In fact, no slang. It's written in such simple language that anyone 100 or 200 years ago or 200 and 300 years from in the future can understand the meaning of the story. So I think it's an important story. It's so simple, and yet it's very terrifying at the same time. And it's The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. And then for your political buffs, for you people that love political intrigue, I recommend Full Disclosure by the late William Safire. He died some years back, and he was a regular on many of the talk shows where the political landscape was discussed and argued about. And then he wrote some books and stuff. And one of his books is called Full Disclosure, having to do with the 26th Amendment of the United States, having to deal with the secession of presidency, if president be decapacitated, be unable to discharge his duties, or whatever the reason he might not be able to be president anymore. Who's going to be president? How does all this happen? Full Disclosure by William Safire. And then for juniors, I've recommended this book before, and I'd like to recommend it again. It's an excellent book. It's not just a story of a young man coming of age, a young adolescent becoming of age, becoming a young man instead of a child. It's also a story of changing cultures in a country, and changing cultures in a small town, which is being overtaken by a larger town or people moving into it, and no longer can they enjoy the same kind of life that they did for generations. In modern times, coming over to a small remote village and changing it forever. And it's called Shark Beneath the Reef, and it's by Jean George. And she's a good writer. Her first name is spelled Jean, and the last name is spelled George, George. So that is Shark Beneath the Reef by Jean George. And then for you crime and suspense and horror lovers, Caleb Carr. His name is spelled C-A-R-R, Caleb Carr, and he writes a book called The Alienist and another book called Angel of Darkness. And both these books deal with serial killers and the team of investigators or detectives who hunt them down and bring their spree to an end and them to justice. And Caleb Carr, I mean, these books will have you on the edge the whole time you're reading them. And they're not short, they're long books. So you prepare yourself, but you won't be able to put them down, and you'll put them down with regret. Each and every time you must take a break and go about your regular life. Caleb Carr, The Alienist, and Angel of Darkness. It's, the imagination or the realm of the imagination that a good novelist puts you in reminds me of the experience I had in the fourth grade when I fell in love with reading, and I fell in love with reading because our teacher, Mrs. Warner, read to us. And she was the kind of person who could read to you and keep you at the edge of your seat. And when she read, she was able to read such perfect that whatever, like if the author was writing had dialogue from a character that had an accent. And often authors try to write the word in such a way as you pronounce it as with that accent. Like, if instead of pronouncing an I with a short I, you pronounce it with a long E or something. And other accents, sign the paper, old man, which is supposed to be some kind of German or something. Sign the paper, old man. Okay, well, she would do it perfect. And then the first book she read to us was Treasure Island, and it was just fantastic. And I remember us all just being transfixed by the story and her ability to talk in the accents of the different characters, like the with the Cockney accent where they drop the H and say, oh, me hands are aching, me hands are aching, my hands are hurting, me hands. They just say, they drop the H and stuff. And she just read it so perfectly. And at one time she had to stop reading because, we only had a certain amount of time in class. It was for reading to us. And it was when the captain was up in the room dying, up in the Admiral Benbow Inn, where he took up residence, and where he first revealed that he had a treasure map that ended up being what everybody was chasing, and that's why the book was called Treasure Island. And he's up there dying, and Mrs. Warner says, well, we'll have to leave him there. And we all just cried out. I remember we're all fourth graders. You go, oh, and we go, you can't leave him up there dying. You got to read another couple of pages and stuff. But no, the hour for reading was up, and so we had to wait till tomorrow to go on with the book. But we were so enthralled with the story that she was putting to us that we almost thought we were there. I remember sitting at my desk at age 9 or 10, whenever it was, and I could just visualize the scene, that inn sitting on the edge of the ocean, and the captain coming up and him ordering people around and being an old salt from the sea and not being a nice guy, being all scruff, and it was and the boy and his mother, and the father being kind of afraid of him and everything. It was really an incredible experience. And Mrs. Warner also read us Call of the Wild, that famous Jack London book. And I think she read us White Fang. And then she read us other stories. And I remember her just keeping us always on the edge of our seats, always waiting to hear what she was going to say. And from that moment on, I was addicted to reading. And I was also helped by the fact that my older brothers and sisters also were reading, and they would discuss the books and the characters and all the motivations and how the books ended, and I was fascinated by that as well. And so reading was something that just was central to my being, and it really helped me through because I was horrible at school. I refused to do anything at school, and I guess I was a lost kid, and so I failed many of my subjects. But I honed my reading skills and just read everything I could lay my hands on. And so, we're going to come up. Well, this half of the show is going to be over, and we're going to bring on my guests in the second half, and we're going to be talking about their group for helping people out in their medical. I'm not really sure, but we're going to find out. So we'll see you back after the break for the second half.
Concluding some